The year was 2089. 16 years had passed since the day the Galactic Concordance Federation arrived in Earth's sky. Most humans still remembered that day. The huge silver ships had appeared above every major city at the same moment. They did not attack. They sent a soft message in every human language. They said they came in peace. They said they wanted to welcome Earth into a family of stars. The world had changed fast after that. The Federation gave humans many gifts. They gave faster-than-light travel. They cured cancer, malaria, and a strange new flu that had killed many people in the 2050s. They gave clean energy that ended the oil wars. They opened trade with other worlds. Earth's leaders called it the greatest day in human history. People cheered in the streets. Children grew up reading school books that called the Federation kind teachers and good friends. But not everyone felt happy. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her small office on the moon. The office was deep inside the United Earth Embassy on the dark side. Through the thick window, she could see the gray dust and the bright stars. She was 38 years old. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were tired. On her desk, there was cold coffee and a glowing screen full of strange symbols. Elena was a forensic xenoarchivist. That was a long word for a simple job. She read old Federation papers and put them in order. She sorted contracts, treaties, and trade deals. She made sure Earth was following all the Federation rules. It was boring work, but Elena was very good at it. She had a sharp mind. She noticed small things that others missed, and lately, she had been noticing too much. For 10 years, she had watched Earth give things away. First, it was the asteroid belt. The Federation said the rocks held minerals that were dangerous for humans to touch, so Earth let them mine it. Then it was the outer moons of Jupiter. The Federation said those moons were holy to an old race, so Earth backed away. Then it was 3 star systems near Earth that humans had not even reached yet. The Federation said those systems were already claimed under old galactic law, so Earth signed them away. Each time, the Federation said thank you. Each time, they sent a small gift, a new medicine, a new tool, a friendly visit. And each time, the humans on TV smiled and said it was a fair deal. Elena did not think it was fair. She rubbed her eyes and looked at her screen. Today, she was working on a forgotten archive. Someone had found old boxes in a storage room of the embassy. The boxes were full of dusty data crystals. No one had looked at them in years. The crystals had been marked as ceremonial gifts. Most of them were just empty, pretty objects given by Federation visitors many years ago. Elena was halfway through the boxes. She had found nothing useful, just old greetings and polite messages. She picked up the next crystal. It was small and blue. It had a small crack on one side. She put it in her reader and waited. The screen blinked. A file came up. It was broken. Most of it was just nonsense, but part of it was readable. Elena leaned forward. It was a Federation memo. A short note from one office to another. The date at the top made her heart jump. The date was 40 years before first contact. 40 years before the Federation said hello to Earth. Elena read it slowly. The words were, Federation Common, the main galactic language. She had learned it at university. The memo talked about a place called Asset 7749 Sol. It talked about extraction quotas. It talked about compliance-shaping protocols. Elena stopped breathing. Sol was the name of Earth's sun. Asset 7749. Sol could only mean one thing. It meant Earth. The Federation had been writing about Earth 40 years before they said they discovered it. She read it again. Then again. Her hands began to shake. The Federation had not found Earth by accident. The Federation had known about Earth for a long, long time. They had a number for it. They had plans for it. The word extraction made her stomach turn cold. Extraction meant taking something away. Elena sat back in her chair. Her mind was racing. She thought about every gift Earth had been given. She thought about every star system Earth had given up. She thought about how easy it had all been. How smooth. How planned. It was planned. She stared at the screen. She did not know what to do. She was a small worker in a big embassy. She had no power. No one would believe her. The Federation observers walked through these halls every day. The human leaders trusted them. They had dinner with them. They went to their parties. But Elena had the memo. She had the proof. She had something no one else had. She made a copy. She made 3 copies. She hid one in her personal files. She hid one in a private cloud space that only she knew. She hid one on a small chip that she put in her shoe. Then she put the broken crystal back in its box, just the way she had found it. She marked the box as fully checked. Nothing important inside. Then she stood up. She washed her face in the small bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were wide. She tried to look normal. She tried to smile. The smile looked strange. She walked back to her desk and tried to do her other work. Her hands kept shaking. That afternoon, the Federation observer came by. His name was Vethric. He was tall and thin, with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. He wore the soft white robes of his people. He always smiled. He always asked Elena how her day was going. Most days, he just walked past her door. Today, he stopped. "Dr. Vasquez," he said in his soft voice. "How is the archive going?" Elena looked up. She kept her face calm. "Slowly," she said. "Just old gifts. Nothing special." Vethric smiled wider. His teeth were small and sharp. "Good, good. Important work, sorting the past. Let me know if you find anything interesting." He waited a moment. His large black eyes did not blink. Then he turned and walked away. Elena sat very still until she could not hear his footsteps anymore. She knew that look. She had seen it before, but only in animals at the zoo. It was the look a hunter gives when it is waiting for the right moment. Vethric knew something, or he was starting to guess. Maybe the archive room had a hidden camera. Maybe her search was logged somewhere. Maybe nothing at all. And he was just being friendly. But Elena did not believe in luck anymore. That night, she did not go home. She slept on the couch in her office. She kept the door locked. She kept the small chip in her shoe. In the morning, she sent a quiet message to an old friend. His name was Commander Idris Okafor. He worked for United Earth Navy Intelligence. They had met years ago at a security meeting. He had told her, half joking, half serious, that he did not trust the Federation. He had said the gifts were too perfect. The deals were too smooth. He had said it felt like a long con. At the time, she had laughed. She had said he was paranoid. She had told him to enjoy his clean energy and stop worrying. Now, she was the one worrying. Her message was short. It was sent through a private channel that the Navy used for old friends. It said only 6 words. "You were right. I have proof." She pressed send. She closed her eyes. Outside her window, the stars shone bright over the gray moon. Somewhere among those stars, the Federation was making more deals with more worlds. Somewhere, a number like 7,749 was being written next to another planet's name. Elena had no plan. She did not know what to do next. She did not know who to trust. But she knew one thing now. The Federation had not come to Earth as a friend. The Federation had come to Earth as a buyer who already knew the price. And humans, all this time, had been the thing being bought. She opened her eyes and got back to work. She still had a job to do. She still had to look normal. But under the desk, her foot tapped against the floor, and the small chip in her shoe felt as heavy as a planet. Commander Idris Okafor came to the moon 3 days later. He came on a normal Navy ship under the cover of a regular safety check. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that did not smile much. His eyes were sharp. He had served in the Navy for 20 years. He had seen many strange things. But what Elena showed him made him sit down hard in her small office chair. He read the memo 3 times. Then he looked up. "This is real?" he asked. "It is real," Elena said. "I checked the data signatures. The crystal is from a Federation office that closed 60 years ago. They forgot about it." Idris was quiet for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to the window. He looked at the stars. "I knew it," he said. I knew it for years, but I had nothing to show. Now we have this." He turned back to her. "And we have a problem. We need more than one memo. One paper is not enough. They will say it is fake. They will say you are crazy. We need a wall of proof." "A mountain." Elena nodded. "Then we build one." They needed help. Idris knew people who would not talk, people who could keep secrets. But he also knew they needed something else. They needed someone who knew the Federation from the inside, someone who could tell them how the system worked, someone who had been hurt by it. That person came to them by accident, 2 weeks later, in a small bar on a trade station near Mars. His name was Tan Veshi. He was a Vrylan. The Vrylan were a small people, only as tall as a human child, with blue-green skin and 4 long fingers on each hand. Their homeworld had joined the Federation 300 years ago. The Federation had given them many gifts back then too. Now their homeworld was almost empty. The forests were gone. The seas were dirty. Most Vrylans worked as cleaners and cooks on Federation ships. They had no money. They had no land. They had no future. Tan was old, by Vrylan standards. He was bitter. He drank a lot. He sat alone in the bar and talked to no one. Idris had heard about him from a friend who flew cargo ships. Idris bought him 3 drinks before Tan would even look at him. When Idris finally showed him the memo, Tan did not look surprised. He looked tired. "Of course," Tan said in slow, sad Federation common. "Of course they did this to you too. They do it to everyone. We Vrylan, we were asset. 4,412. I have seen our number in old papers. We sold our world for medicine and tools. The medicine made us live longer. The tools dug up our planet. Now we live longer to see the dust." He drank his drink and looked at Elena with watery eyes. "You think you found one paper. There are thousands. They are everywhere. The Federation does not hide them well, because no one looks. No one ever looks. The Federation is so big that no one believes one small species could check the books." "We will check the books," Elena said. Tan laughed. It was a sad laugh. But then he stopped. He looked at her face. He looked at Idris. He saw something he had not seen in 300 years of his people's history. He saw 2 people who actually meant it. Tan came with them. He brought a small bag of his things. He brought knowledge that no human had. He knew which Federation databases were public. He knew which ones were private, but easy to break into. He knew the language tricks the Federation used to hide bad deals inside good-looking words. He knew the smell of a long con. They moved to a safe place. Idris had a friend who owned an old mining station in the asteroid belt. The station was empty and forgotten. It had air, water, and a working computer system. It was not on any map anyone cared about. They went there, and they got to work. For 4 months, they did almost nothing but read. Elena read every contract Earth had signed. Every one. She read the small print at the bottom. She found things that made her teeth grind. The fusion power plants the Federation gave Earth used parts that only the Federation could make. So Earth had to keep buying parts forever. The clean water tech needed a special crystal that grew only on a Federation moon. The cure for cancer used a chemical that was only sold by one Federation company. Earth was paying. And Earth was paying. And Earth was paying. And the price was rising every year. Idris dug into the trade numbers. He found that the Federation used a money called the Krell Standard. Earth's goods were paid for in Krell Standard. But the Federation alone decided what 1 Krell was worth. Every year, the Krell got a tiny bit smaller against Earth's goods. Just a tiny bit. Almost nothing. But over 100 years, that tiny bit would empty Earth's pockets. Over 200 years, Earth would owe the Federation more than Earth could ever pay. It was a slow trap. A trap built so slow that no one would notice until it was too late. Tan found the worst part of all. He helped them break the code on the rest of the broken memo from Elena's blue crystal. The full document was clear now. It was a Federation training paper. It was used to teach new Federation workers how to handle a husbandry candidate. That was the word. Husbandry. Like farming. Like raising animals for milk and meat. The paper had rules. Step 1. Find a young world with smart people. Step 2. Do not contact them yet. Watch them for 50 years. Step 3. Send small problems. New diseases. Strange weather. Make the people scared. Step 4. Arrive as friends. Offer to fix the problems you made. Step 5. Trade gifts for land, minerals, and rights. Step 6. Keep them dependent on you forever. Elena read the paper out loud. Her voice shook. The diseases. The strange flu of the 2050s that had killed so many. That had been the Federation. They had made it. They had sent it. And then they had cured it. Like heroes. Idris's hands turned to fists. They killed people. To soften us up. To make us grateful when they showed up. Yes, Tan said quietly. They killed many of my people too, long ago. We thought it was a curse from our gods. They let us think that. There was a long silence in the small mining station. Outside, rocks tumbled slowly through space. How many worlds? Elena finally asked. How many other planets has this happened to? Tan thought for a moment. From what I have seen in the old files, 40, maybe 50, across many thousands of years. And no one ever caught them? Tan shook his head. No one was looking. The Federation makes the rules. The Federation reads the books. Who can argue with them? Elena looked at the wall of papers and screens around her. Each one was a piece of evidence. Each one was a stolen thing. Each one was a lie. We can, she said. That same week, things got dangerous. Back on Earth, Idris's old team in Navy intelligence got a strange order from above. They were told to stop their investigation. They were told to drop the case. The order came from very high up, from people who had Federation friends. Then Elena's apartment back in Geneva was searched while she was away. Nothing was taken. But everything had been moved a tiny bit. They wanted her to know. And then Tan disappeared. He went out to a station shop to buy food, and he never came back. The cameras showed him walking down a hall. 2 figures in dark coats stepped out of a door. The video cut off. When it came back on, the hall was empty. Elena cried that night. Idris did not. Idris just sat at the computer for many hours, reading and writing. In the morning, he looked at Elena with a hard face. They are watching us, he said. They will come for us next. We cannot trust Earth's leaders. Half of them have Federation friends. The other half are too scared. So we do this without them. We finish the work. We build the receipt. Every line, every penny, every dead body. And when it is done, we do something they will never expect. What? Elena asked. Idris smiled for the first time in months. It was not a happy smile. We sue them, he said. In their own court, under their own laws. Elena stared at him. Then, slowly, she began to smile too. Outside the small window of the old mining station, the stars went on shining, cold and quiet, just as they had for billions of years. They did not know yet that something new was coming, something the Federation had never planned for, something humans had been building for thousands of years without even knowing it. A bill, with every line itemized, and a demand for full payment. The old mining station became their home. They named it nothing. They told no one about it. They moved deeper inside the rock to be safer. They blocked off the outer rooms. They lived on packaged food and recycled water. The walls were cold metal. The lights were dim. But it was safe, and it was theirs. Idris and Elena began to bring more people in. They had to be careful. Every person they asked was a risk. One wrong choice could end everything. So they picked slowly. They picked old. They picked tired. They picked people who had nothing left to lose, and old anger they had never let go of. The first new person was Margaret Chen. Margaret was 68 years old. She lived alone in a small apartment in Hong Kong. She had been a tax lawyer for 45 years. She had retired 3 years ago, and she was bored out of her mind. Her husband had died. Her children had grown. She spent her days yelling at the news on her screen. Idris flew to Earth in secret. He met her in a quiet park, He showed her some of what they had found. He did not even finish his explanation. Margaret stopped him with one raised hand. "They cook the books," she said. Her eyes were sharp behind her glasses. "Not just bad math. Real cooking, hidden fees, false values, forced contracts. I have spent my whole life looking at this kind of thing. I know it when I see it." She took her glasses off and cleaned them slowly. "When do we start?" she said. Margaret moved to the mining station within a week. She brought 3 big bags of books. She brought her favorite tea. She brought a small framed picture of her dead husband and put it on her desk. Then she got to work. Margaret read Federation Commons slowly at first. But her brain was a machine. In 8 months, she could read it as well as she read English. In 1 year, she could spot a hidden trick in a Federation contract faster than Elena could. She read everything. She made notes in red ink. She made charts. She built a long list, line by line, of every wrong thing the Federation had done. "They are not very good at this," she said one morning over breakfast. Idris looked up. "What do you mean?" "They have done this for thousands of years." Margaret sipped her tea. "Yes, and they have gotten lazy. They never had anyone read the small print. They write the same tricks over and over. They stopped trying to hide them well. It is like a thief who has stolen so many things that he just walks in the front door now." She smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We are going to walk in the front door too." With a flashlight. The next person was a hacker, or rather, a small group of hackers. They called themselves the Open Window. They were 5 young people from 5 different countries. They had been arrested many times for breaking into rich companies and showing the world the bad things those companies did. They did not want money. They wanted truth. Idris contacted them through a chain of secret messages. He showed them small pieces of evidence. Within a day, all 5 had said yes. They did not move to the station. They stayed where they were, hidden in different cities. But they began to dig. They broke into Federation trade archives. They broke into Federation news services. They broke into the private mail of Federation officers. They sent the data through safe channels to the mining station, where Elena and Margaret sorted it. The pile grew, and grew, and grew. Then came the strangest helper of all. He was not human. He was not a defector like Tan had been. He was a Federation officer. His name was Vor-Sethic. He was from a species called the Tessari. The Tessari were tall, gray-skinned beings, with long faces and 3 eyes. They were known across the Federation for one thing. They followed rules. They followed every rule. They believed rules were the most important thing in the universe. Rules made order. Rules made fairness. Without rules, life was just animals fighting in mud. Vor-Sethic was a compliance auditor. His job was to check Federation paperwork to make sure it followed the law. He was very good at his job. He had been doing it for 90 years. The open window hackers had been quietly leaving small files in his work mailbox. Just small things. Pieces of contracts. Numbers that did not add up. They were testing him. They wanted to see what he would do. At first, Vor-Sethic reported the strange files to his bosses. His bosses told him to ignore them. They said the files were fake. They said the files were a trick by enemies of the Federation. That answer made Vor-Sethic suspicious. He was a man who lived for rules. And the rules said all reports must be checked. The rules said no file should be ignored just because someone said so. His bosses were breaking the rules. So Vor-Sethic started checking the files himself, in his own time. At night, in his small apartment on a Federation space station, he used his own access to look up the contracts mentioned in the files. They were all real. Every single one was real. Vor-Sethic did not sleep for 3 days. He read everything. He cross-checked everything. He compared the contracts with the Federation's own founding charter, the great old paper that was the highest law of all. The husbandry protocol broke the charter in 19 different ways. It was not just unkind. It was illegal. The very law the Federation said it was built on said that no member could harm another in this way. The Council was breaking its own rules. For Vor-Sethic, this was not just sad. It was the worst thing he could imagine. The whole Federation was a lie. The order he had served his whole life was rotten at the heart. He sent a message back through the hidden channel. The message was only one line. I am with you. Tell me where to come. When Vorsethik arrived at the mining station, Idris met him at the docking bay with a gun in his belt, just in case. But Vorsethik walked off the small ship with a single suitcase. His 3 eyes were calm. He bowed slightly to each human he met. I am here to follow the rules, he said. I am here to make this right. Margaret loved him. They sat together for hours, reading laws. Vorsethik knew Federation law better than any human ever could. He knew old rules from 1,000 years ago. He knew strange laws that had not been used in centuries but were still in the books. He knew the secret keys to the Federation legal system, the small open doors that no one had walked through in lifetimes. One of those doors changed everything. Vorsethik found it on a quiet Tuesday. He came to dinner that night, with shining eyes. There is a law, he said. It is very old. It is called the Right of Reckoning. Everyone listened. It was made when the Federation was new, he said. It was made because the founders feared what we now know to be true. They feared that one day, the strong would cheat the weak. So they wrote a law. The law says any member, even the smallest, may demand a full audit of the council itself. They may bring all their proof. They may stand before the Grand Tribunal, and once it is filed, if even 3 other members agree to support it, the council cannot say no. The audit must happen. By law. He paused. It has not been used in 5,000 years, he said. Most members do not know it exists. The council buried it deep in the books. But it is still law. They cannot remove it without breaking the charter. Idris stood up from the table. You mean we can take them to court? Yes, Vorsethik said. In their own court, with their own law, and they cannot stop us. I read. Elena began to laugh. She did not stop for a long time. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who has carried something heavy for too long and is finally about to put it down. They worked harder after that. They worked night and day. Margaret built the case. Vorsethik fixed every legal detail. Elena gathered all the evidence into one huge file. The open window hackers got every needed signature, every needed seal, every needed Federation legal stamp from the Federation's own systems. The Federation had given them the tools without knowing. 400,000 pages, 11,000 years of theft, 43 other species, all named, all proven. By the end, the file had a name. They called it the receipt, and it was ready to be filed in the highest court the galaxy had ever known. The Federation capital was a place humans had only seen in pictures. It was called Kethar Prime. It was a giant gas planet with bright blue and purple rings. The Federation Council did not live on the planet itself. The planet was too dangerous, with storms that could swallow whole moons. Instead, the Council lived in a huge ring of stations that floated around it. The stations were joined by long bridges and shining towers. From far away, it looked like a crown made of glass. The Grand Tribunal Hall was the heart of the crown. It was a building so big that 10,000 beings could sit inside it at one time. The walls were made of a stone that glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling was so high that small clouds sometimes formed near the top. Statues of the Federation's first founders stood around the walls. They had been there for 10,000 years. Elena had never seen anything so beautiful and so cold at the same time. They had come to Kethar Prime as a small trade group. That was the cover story. Earth had asked to send a few people to study Federation legal systems for a school program. It was a small request. The Federation said yes without thinking. They had no idea what the small request really was. The team was small. Elena, Idris, Margaret, Vorsethik, a few of the open window hackers, hidden in their group as junior helpers. They wore plain Federation legal robes. They carried small bags. They smiled politely at every guard. Inside their bags, they carried the receipt. All 400,000 pages, copied many times, on many different drives. hidden in many different ways. They also carried something else. They carried the right legal forms, all signed and sealed, ready to be filed. The day of filing came on a quiet morning. The tribunal was in session. The day's work was boring. A small dispute about trade taxes between two small worlds. The council members were half asleep on their high chairs. Margaret walked to the front of the great hall. She was 68 years old. She wore a sensible black suit she had brought from Hong Kong. Her gray hair was tied in a small bun. Her glasses sat on her nose. In her hands, she held a thick folder of papers. Her shoes clicked softly on the glowing stone floor. The council members looked at her with mild curiosity. A human. They saw humans rarely. This one looked like a small, tired old woman. They did not worry. Margaret reached the speaker's circle. She placed her folder down. She opened it carefully. She cleared her throat. "Honored Council," she said in flawless Federation common. "My name is Margaret Chen. I am the legal voice for the species of Earth, also known to your records as Asset 7749, Sol. I am here today to file a right of reckoning under Section 4 of the Federation Founding Charter." The hall went very quiet. A few council members looked at each other. The words right of reckoning were words most of them had never heard out loud. The old language. The buried law. They looked confused. Margaret did not stop. She knew she had only one chance. She had practiced this for months. She began to read. She read for 9 hours. She did not stop. She did not eat. She drank water only when her throat hurt too much to speak. She read every charge, every broken contract, every false trade, every stolen mineral, every poisoned planet, every dead person. At the start, the council members laughed quietly. Then they stopped laughing. Then they started to look at their own papers in worry. Then they started to whisper to each other. Then a few of them tried to interrupt her. But Vorsethic stood up in the Tesserae section of the hall. "Federation Law Section 19, he said in his deep voice, states that a right of reckoning, once begun, cannot be interrupted. The speaker must be allowed to finish." He sat down. There was nothing the council could do. The law was clear. They had to listen. And while Margaret read, something else was happening across the galaxy. The open window hackers, hidden in their small rooms back at the mining station, pressed a button. The receipt, in copies, was sent at the same moment to all 1,200 member species of the Federation. Every council, every government, every public news service, every screen on every space station. It went everywhere. It could not be stopped. There were too many copies. They were already moving through the galactic networks like a flood. By the time Margaret finished her speech, every literate person in the galaxy knew about the husbandry protocol. The tribunal hall was silent when she stopped. Margaret closed her folder. She looked up at the council with calm eyes. "We hereby request," she said, "a full audit of the Federation Council under the right of reckoning. We have evidence. We have witnesses. We have legal standing. We require 3 seconding members under Section 4 to begin the process." For one long moment, nothing happened. Then Vorsethic stood up again. "The Tesserae second this filing." A small noise went through the hall. A blue-skinned representative from a moon called Yelu stood up. Yelu seconds. Another being, a creature with 8 arms from a far-off station, stood up. The free stations of Vela, second. It was done. 3 seconds. Under the Federation's own old law, the Council could not stop the audit now. The Council exploded into shouting. Half of them screamed for guards. They demanded the humans be arrested. They demanded the data be erased. They demanded Margaret be silenced. The other half, the ones who saw their own people's old asset numbers in the receipt, demanded the truth. They demanded their own audits. The hall went from silent to a storm of angry voices in 10 seconds. Margaret picked up her folder. She walked back to her group. She sat down next to Elena. "That," she said quietly, "was the best day of my life." But the danger was not over. The Federation moved fast. Within hours, a Federation warship arrived at Earth. The captain demanded that Earth be put under quarantine for, in his words, dangerous lies and bad behavior. He demanded that all human leaders be questioned. He demanded that no human ship be allowed to leave the home system. He had not counted on Idris. Months ago, while the others built the legal case, Idris had been doing something quieter. He had been speaking, in secret, with old friends in the United Earth Navy. He had been showing them small pieces of the proof. He had been planting seeds. By the time the Federation warship arrived at Earth, half the Earth Navy fleet was waiting for it. Weapons hot. Ready. The Earth Admiral, a woman named Park, sent the Federation captain a short message. "Leave," she said. "You have no authority here. We have read the receipts." The Federation captain did not leave at first. He thought she was bluffing. He was wrong. The Earth fleet fired one warning shot across his ship's bow. He left. And he was not the only Federation captain to be turned away that week. Across the galaxy, 3 other species who had received the receipt and seen their own asset numbers chose to act. The Tesserae, Vorsethic's own people, locked down their main shipping lanes. A water world called Fen Su sent its fleet to circle its own borders. The free stations of Vela closed their ports to all Federation officers. The Federation suddenly had a problem. It was not a war. There was no shooting, but all over the galaxy, doors were closing on them. Trade was stopping. Allies were going quiet. Officers were resigning. The huge body of the Federation was suddenly frozen, unsure what to do. And in the great tribunal hall on Kethar Prime, the audit had to begin. The law said so. The whole galaxy was watching now. The Federation could not refuse, not unless they wanted every member world to leave at once. They had to sit down. They had to open their books. They had to answer the questions of one small old woman from Hong Kong, with her sharp eyes and her glass of water and her 400,000 pages of proof. Elena watched it all from a small chair behind the speaker's circle. Her hands were not shaking anymore. She thought about the broken blue crystal in the dust of the lunar embassy. She thought about how strange the universe was, how a single forgotten box of old gifts had brought the greatest power in the galaxy to its knees. Margaret leaned over and whispered to her. "Now," Margaret said, "comes the boring part. Now we make them pay." Elena smiled. The boring part. The accounting. The line-by-line walk through every charge. Months of work. Maybe years. It was going to be wonderful. The audit took 18 months. It was the longest, slowest, most boring trial in galactic history. There were no big speeches after the first day. There were no shouting matches. There were no dramatic moments with weapons. There was only paper. Mountains of paper. Numbers and contracts and names and dates. Day after day, week after week, in the great glowing hall. And, slowly, the Federation drowned in it. Margaret led the case. She was 69 now. She had a small bed set up in a room near the tribunal, so she did not have to walk far. She drank tea by the bucket. She had 2 helpers, both Tesserae trained by Vorsethik, who passed her the right paper at the right time. She never raised her voice. She never made a joke. She just asked questions, one after another, and waited for answers. The council members tried, at first, to fight her. They sent their best lawyers. The lawyers were old and proud. They had been winning cases for hundreds of years. They tried tricks. They tried to confuse the timeline. They tried to bury Margaret in their own counterpapers. Margaret beat them all. Every time a Federation lawyer made a claim, Margaret asked for the proof. The lawyer would say the proof was somewhere. Margaret would smile and pull out the very paper that disproved the lawyer's claim. She had read every Federation legal book ever written. She had Vorsethik whispering in her ear. She knew their tricks better than they did. After the first month, the Federation lawyers stopped fighting. They started just answering yes or no. After the 3rd month, they started crying. By month 6, the truth was out for everyone to see. The numbers were terrible. Earth alone had been overcharged by an amount that, in galactic money, was as big as the value of 3 small star systems. The Vrylan, Tan's people, had lost 100 times that. There were species the humans had never even heard of who had lost everything. Their planets stripped, their populations shrunk, their cultures broken. All of it traced back to clean Federation paperwork. All of it now exposed by Margaret's calm voice, and Vorsethic's quiet finger pointing at a line in a book. The watching galaxy did not stay quiet. Across 1,200 worlds, people read the daily news from the tribunal. They saw their own world's name. They saw their own asset number. They saw what had been done. There were riots on 3 Federation worlds. Statues of old council leaders were torn down. Federation officers were chased out of their offices. On a quiet planet called Beth Vor, the people opened up old graves and found the proof of a fake plague that had killed thousands of their grandparents long ago. The grief and anger were huge. And then came the votes. One by one, member species began to demand their own audits. Then they demanded reparations. Then, when they got tired of waiting, 12 of them voted to leave the Federation entirely. They formed their own group, a smaller, fairer one. They called it the Free Compact. They asked humans to help them write its founding charter. The old Federation, the one that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, began to fall apart. The final ruling came on a cool autumn day. Margaret wore the same black suit she had worn on the first day. Elena and Idris sat behind her. Vorsethik stood quietly in the side gallery. The chief judge, a creature with silver scales and 4 eyes, read the ruling for 2 hours. The court found the council guilty on every charge. The husbandry protocol was officially declared illegal. The council was ordered to pay back every credit ever stolen, with interest, going back as far as the records went. The numbers were so big that the galactic banks did not know how to count them. 3 of the most guilty council species lost their voting rights for 100 years. 2 old council leaders were sent to legal prison. The Federation Charter itself was rewritten, with new rules to stop this from ever happening again. The husbandry worlds, all 43 of them, were given full member status. Their stolen lands were returned. Their old debts were erased. Their right to govern themselves was, at last, real. Earth was free. Margaret packed up her folder one last time. She walked out of the tribunal hall slowly. Outside, the sun of Kethar Prime was setting through the great glass dome. The light made the floor glow gold. People, beings of all kinds, were standing in the halls. They moved aside as Margaret passed. Some of them bowed. Some of them touched their hearts. A small Vrylan child, holding her father's hand, looked up at Margaret with wide eyes. Margaret bent down. She smiled at the little girl. "Hello," Margaret said in slow Vrylan. The girl smiled back. The father had tears running down his blue-green face. He could not speak. Margaret patted the girl's hand and walked on. Later, in the small hotel room, Idris poured everyone a small glass of human whiskey. Vorsethik would not drink it, but he held a cup of warm water in both hands. "To Tan," Elena said. They drank to Tan, who had not lived to see this day. Federation agents had found him on that day long ago, and they had killed him. The proof of his murder was now in the official tribunal records. His name was written in the Great Hall now, with the names of all the others who had given their lives to dig up the truth. 2 years passed. The new Federation, smaller now and humbled, slowly went back to work. Many things changed. But the strangest change of all happened to Earth. Earth, the small, wet planet that had once been asset 7,749, became something the galaxy had never seen before. It became the place where the laws were trusted. Other species began to send their problems to Earth. 2 warring planets, instead of fighting, sent their lawyers to Geneva to argue the case in front of human judges. A trade dispute between 2 big star companies was settled by a panel of human accountants in New York. A long, ugly fight over an old border was ended by a single human tax expert in Tokyo who pointed to a line in an old contract that everyone else had missed. Across the galaxy, a saying spread. People said it in cities, and on space stations, and in small market stalls. Do not sign anything without a human in the room. It was said with respect. It was said with a little bit of fear. Humans had no big armies. Humans had no super weapons. Humans were not the strongest fighters, but humans were the ones who read the small print. Humans were the ones who counted the credits. Humans were the ones who, when promised a friendship, asked to see the receipt. And in a small office on the far side of Earth's moon, Elena Vasquez sat at her old desk. She was older now. Her hair was more gray than brown. There were lines around her eyes from too many years of looking at small writing. The desk was the same. The cold coffee was the same. The view of the stars was the same. Across from her sat a young alien diplomat. He was thin and pale, with feathered hair and 4 small eyes. His name was hard for humans to say. He was from a newly contacted species, a species that had been visited by the new, smaller Federation just last month. They had been offered a membership. He was nervous. He held a thick contract in his shaking hands. They said, he told Elena, that this is a fair offer. They said the deal is good. They said we should sign it quickly, before the offer ends. But our elders, they remembered the stories of what happened to Earth. So they sent me here. They told me to find the human who started it all. He looked at her, with big, sad eyes. Are you that human? Elena smiled. She remembered another day, long ago, when she had held a small broken blue crystal in her hand, when she had not known what to do, when she had sent a message of only 6 words to Idris. You were right. I have proof. She took the contract from the young diplomat's hands. She set it down on her desk. She opened a drawer and took out a fresh red pen. She poured them both a fresh cup of coffee. She turned to the first page of the contract. Sit down, she said kindly. This is going to take a while. Now then, she uncapped her pen. Let us go through this, line by line. And bring me your receipts. Outside her small window, the stars shone bright over the gray moon. They had not changed, but everything underneath them had. And it had all started with one small woman, one broken crystal, and one simple human idea.